And there we are. So I haven't seen any photos, unless I missed them, from Jan's the past 2 weeks in the weekly.
Oh, that's right. Well, he had one last week, didn't he? He had the two people kind of on either side of the corridor. Was that not his? I might be wrong
I
about
don't
that.
think it was. If it did, I missed it. I wasn't wanting to miss it.
All right. Here, go back. He was in Spain
Yeah.
before last, but maybe maybe he's out shooting pictures. He doesn't have time to put stuff inside a weekly.
Now, I'm retired completely, so I got all kinds of time in the world for that stuff. But yeah, this time of year for me, there's a lot of pictures to take out there with the flower photography and things.
I
Usually
know
the
that was
winter time.
Arn's picture that I was thinking about there.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. Yeah, that must be quite lovely. I'm not quite there yet, so I'm have to go into the well, I call it the coal mine, but UBC is hardly that.
Yeah. But then the wintertime, I don't really like to get out in the cold. I mean, if
Hmm.
I'm out there, I'm okay, but I just can't inspire myself to go out there. Uh, but that allows me a lot of time to do other things. And I was kind of intrigued by Ski's images he's shooting off of a television screen. And
Yeah, that's
notice those.
that's a lot of fun. I did one. It was funny because so well, not only did he do it off of a television screen, but he also did a longer exposure. So he's kind of, playing around in a couple of ways. And I'm still contemplating it now that he's opened that door. Uh, some months ago, I was at a local bar, and they had this old 50s TV screen set up behind the bar with a piece of pink acetone plastic over top of it. Yep, good morning, John. And they were playing old black and white films. So in this case, they were playing Psycho.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I set myself up, framed it, and took a bunch of shots with, the kind of kitschy, somewhat distorted version of that. But I was, it is other people's art, certainly, but it's been represented, and then I'm capturing someone's kind of way of representing this. So I might show those at some point. Maybe I'll show them today. But it's fun to do that.
Yeah, I'm thinking about doing that this winter. Just get the camera because I think it's important to keep practicing, even in the
Mhm.
winter.
Well, winter here isn't so wintry. I
Yeah,
think I
that's what I've
once got
heard.
a couple pokes once when we had a freeze, and I took a macro shot of a piece of ice. Can you believe it? A piece of ice. And then someone said, "Yeah, that's not so uncommon where I'm from." Like we do have winters up in the interior and up in the mountains, but it's more rainy here in the winter. But I do. There's a garden I go shoot at a lot, and in the winter I've been going to it recently because like big gardens in the winter go through really interesting transformations, and there's so much interesting structure and shapes, and even watching stuff kind of molder away, or the like cosmos in particular, they are long lasting. So you find ones in December and January that have kind of weathered the storms and everything, and they're quite beautiful.
Yeah.
And the lake's so different in the winter too, of course.
Now, I didn't start out with flower photography. It was not on my list of type of photography to do at all until my wife's got this industrial level garden in the backyard. So I've got that opportunity. So I
Yeah,
thought,
it's a
why
good one to
not?
take.
Hey, there's John.
Good evening. Good morning.
And good afternoon, all.
Yeah.
We're hungry.
Welcome to planet Earth. And that kind
Yeah.
of So we were just wondering about because you haven't posted any photos the past 2 weeks, isn't that right?
Yeah, that's right. Because I was in Spain and I didn't have a computer or only an iPad.
Yeah.
So and I'm not so sophisticated that I can do it by Wi-Fi or
Mhm.
so. I've just one card and it didn't make much photos as well. So
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something.
yeah, but I've seen in Weekly that there were not too much photos this last week. Eh?
It didn't seem to be. Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe people are out enjoying the summer.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe 30 or something, not too much. I think 20, 30.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't think you have I think you can get all of them in one page without scrolling.
But you have posted as well, I think, yeah?
Hmm.
And were the results good? I didn't follow it this week.
Oh, there's some interesting pictures, some good discussion. Yeah.
Okay.
We had yeah, several, and there. What I also enjoy, we have some new folks that showed up this week, so
Okay.
also kind of getting a sense of what they're contributing, and then seeing how they respond and go. So
Yeah.
it's kind of nice to see new folks come through.
Nice. Now, this week I started with photographing at night.
Ah, wonderful.
Uh, after
What were
sun
you photographing?
after sunset. And
Hmm.
now I was thinking I need to have a new project. So the first one was in a hurry, but now I'm photographing quietness.
Mm,
So as the opposite of it being in a hurry.
yeah,
And without people, or not to only you see some rests of people, but no people in it.
right. So
And
you're shooting city scenes generally,
yeah, or
in
I
the night?
try to first I try with the same as last project with 4 photos of quietness,
Hmm.
and then yeah, uh, with blue sky and one light. So I try. I posted one photo next week, so you can see.
Well, it's good to experiment. I mean, if you see a scene and you don't know how to shoot it, try it some
Yeah,
weird way just to do it and see what
because
happens.
it's for me it's difficult to have to shoot quietness because what is that? That is nothing.
Yeah, off the top of my head, it would be might be kind of voyeuristic, where you're sneaking up on something, the quietness,
Yeah, I
because you
found
think about
one
quietness as a
photographer.
verb.
Sorry.
You think about quiet as a verb instead.
Have
Yeah,
you
That's
heard of the concept with liminal spaces?
yes,
So my son really likes this, but a lot of folks like liminal spaces. So taking
yeah,
pictures of public spaces or rooms that kind of are oddly vacant or kind of notably with an absence of people in it.
yeah,
And so that's kind of a fun thing to do, either because you seek it out and so you're just going for that kind of shot. Or, it's funny, like, back in the day, Ajay, his photographs were like that
yeah,
because the exposures were so long. So, having a 3-minute exposure on the street will kind of tend to eliminate all the people except that
yeah,
one guy polishing someone's shoes. So those kinds of effects are kind of fun to play with too. But I quite enjoy evening photography because of what happens to light sources.
yeah,
Where, like in the day, you've got this big shadow box or this light box from the sky kind of illuminating everything, and light is bouncing off of surfaces. But at night, it's much more kind of isolated, and so you get kind of pools of light along stretches of view, and that can be quite. I really enjoy that, and I love what happens to reflections at night. They're
yeah.
just tantalizing.
But the first two, 3 times I did it without a tripod. But now
Hmm.
I think it's better to do it with a tripod because you get too much. Uh, how you say? Uh, in the photo when
Shake.
yeah, no, yeah, shake of the wind, that's the problem, and the other thing is it's getting too grainy sometimes.
Your ISO shooting up too high.
Yeah,
yeah,
Try, I mean, one of the things that I'm, mostly because when I do anything approaching urban or street photography, there's no tripod allowed. It's because I'm walking through, so I'm just not going to carry it. So I lean on things a lot. I put my camera down on things a lot. So I'm often using surfaces to either steady myself or
yeah,
steady the camera.
yeah,
And then that helps a fair bit for
yeah.
any motion. And then I at night, I shoot with a camera that can go pretty high ISO without much concern.
Okay.
So that helps
Depends
as
on
well.
where you are. Eh? If you are in a city, that's different. Here it's more or less a landscape, and then you
Yeah,
can
that is different. Yeah, if you're in a landscape, then absolutely. But
yeah,
again, I've leaned on trees or put my camera
yeah,
down.
yeah,
That's
you can find your way sometimes on the ground. Eh?
yeah.
And I
Actually,
found one photographer. Maybe you know his name, Todd Hido.
Hido, Hido.
Yeah,
I've heard of him, yes.
he photographs buildings
mhm.
and yeah, kind of sneaky. Uh, he portraits houses with some light in it, and sometimes he have problems with people because yeah, what is a man doing in the night photographing their house? Huh?
Yeah, that can end up
Oh
not
yeah,
being.
I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's similar to the liminal space things you were talking about too. Some of that stuff. The liminal spacing, I think definitionally, it's supposed to be some transitional area, like a hallway or something like that.
Hmm.
Doesn't have to be, but where there's an absence of people. And also, some people also say it has to be low quality, like film, really low quality film, which I disagree with that altogether. But yeah, something just kind of murky. And I think, yeah, you would learn, you might want to check that out, and liminal photography, because that's a really interesting
Yeah,
concept.
it gives tension. Yeah? So
Yeah.
when you and this is what I'm searching for, tension. So you have to show something which is not there, but give some tension.
Yeah. It's interesting. So my son, who's in his early 20s, he is interested in photography, which I'm quite happy about. But he also is influenced in how he thinks about it because of all of his years of playing video games. And in recent years, a lot of video games have included kind of little interface pieces where, not only can you play back, a sequence or a scene that just happened, and of course you can move the camera around within a, 360 immersive environment, but you often in some of the games now have photographic tools. So you can actually, let's say it's a Spider-Man game, you can do a action shot of Spider-Man jumping against, the backdrop of the cityscape and things like that, playing around with aperture, playing around with shutter speed, playing around
Yeah,
with focal length and things like that. And some of the, from my perception, some of the interest that seems to be coming up, especially around some of the younger folks, around liminal stuff, interacts a bit with, virtual worlds coming out of gaming. And there are liminal spaces, everywhere in a lot of game environments. But it's really fascinating to see those kind of crossover effects of, the influence of that as kind of something to develop your vision and interest, and then taking that out to the world around you.
yeah,
You don't have to, but it's a good thing to do that.
yeah,
But you're right. This is what is it you're trying to, what's your subject, What's the narrative, And that's why I think you think of quietness as something you've captured. You
yeah,
caught it
yeah,
somehow.
yeah. Yeah, maybe I can do it with the same as in a hurry. That I make a series of 4 of different quietness, and then it's going to play a role. You go to see differences, I think.
Mhm. The other thing that's nice to capture out at night, that go out and look for, is like on a really rainy night. It's a good time to go out, or on a
Yeah,
very foggy night, because then,
misty.
again, surfaces change. They glisten or they're shrouded, and you
Yeah,
get all of these changes to your sense of depth
yeah.
and your sense of surface, which can be
But Mr.
quite
Todd Hido, he makes photos out of his car. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And
like through the
then
windshield and things like
when
that.
it's a bit foggy, that's nice as well. Huh?
Yeah.
Which is something I've wanted to do, like stick out a place when it's really heavily raining, when it's dark, and I can set my camera up on the tripod and just get this blurry motion blur of cars going by and splashing and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But I never do. I mean, you have
Yeah,
to be in the right time of day and
yeah,
things like that.
Well, if you
yeah.
set your
But
shutter speed
then
right,
you
Yeah.
have to you have to plan it, I think.
yeah. If you set the shutter speed right, and it's a heavy rain, you can, not only get, streaks of rain coming down, but bouncing back up off the street. So you get all this interesting interface at the ground level with rain doing its crazy thing. Yeah, lots of ability to practice in rain out here in the winter in Vancouver.
Oh, yeah. But when you use a tripod, what kind of tripod are you using, Jan?
Normal. I have one of how you say? What's his name? I have two. It's a Manfrotto.
Manfrotto, yeah?
Yeah, I have a heavy one and a lighter one, but I never use them, so we will see tonight.
Yeah. I use tripods a lot. Um, I think there's a disadvantage to that because you lose spontaneity altogether. Forget it,
Yeah,
spontaneity.
yeah,
But you do have this complete control of your scene,
yeah.
so you can really put some thought into it a lot more.
Yeah,
I've
I
been
was this week I was doing. I started at now when the then the sun is falling at 9:30, and then that was the time that I started. And then after half an hour, well, I needed to speed up my aperture because yeah, if you are in 10,000 ISO, you know what happens. So then I was at 2.8, and I think now I have to stop because that's too much. When you are photographing out of hand in 2.8 with a shutter of 130 or something, then with a 50 millimeter,
yeah.
you know that's you have to short. So the that's why I was thinking to have a tripod because yeah.
So actually tonight I'm going to a show downtown, so I've been contemplating what camera to take. But because I'll be downtown at night, it's not just about the show, but I either shoot with my Q monochrome because I can shoot, at 12,000, 25,000 if I want to, but I can often shoot at 1.7 at night and it's still really sharp. So I can have a faster shutter speed, fairly wide open, but a really fun lens to shoot with. I have a 50 millimeter f1 lens that's just a hoop to shoot at night with
Yeah.
because, I can get still really sharp, especially if I'm doing reflections or streets and such. I can play around between f1 and f2 and have enough latitude. And I'm, last like 2 weeks ago, I was shooting at night where there were like vendors and things like that. So I'm shooting at f1. I think it was at f1, and it's like ISO 200, and it's dark, completely dark out, and so it's you just have more latitude
Yeah.
with if you have a little bit more on the aperture.
Yeah, but this week I had to make a photo with a lot of depth of field, so f8 or something, and then
Yeah, that'd be
uh,
hard.
that's the problem. Then you need to accept not too much sharpness, and
Yeah,
if you have only one thing to shoot, it's not a problem. But if you have a lot of depth, that's then you well then you feel the barriers of what you can do.
yeah.
You have to work within the limitations of whatever you're trying to get done. That's
Yeah,
why a
or
tripod
you have
it
to
expands, it reduces your limitations.
Yeah.
yeah, or you have to accept that you have unsharpness, and then
That one photographer, Greg Girard, that we've talked about a couple of times, he would wander around the streets of Tokyo or Kowloon City at night with a tripod, and he'd take these amazing shots of liminal spaces and such. And his one of the ways he aesthetically he liked to play with his images is really gather all of the different kinds of light, from fluorescent light to colored lights and all the rest of it. So his scenes are just awash in really interesting, golds and blues and reds of the neon and such. It's really nice stuff.
yeah. Yeah, because you don't see the blue light in the night. There's blue light, but you never see it with your eyes. It's only in your camera can show it to you.
Yep.
And I've tried to shoot it. I've shot him moonlight, full moonlight,
Yeah,
and thinking there would be something special. There is some special to it because like if you have flowers in the foreground and you have the tree in the background or a house in the background and so forth, and the lights are on, you do get like the tungsten yellow lightish lighting kind of stuff coming out of the windows. And of course, the sky is dark, but the moonlight that's lighting up the flowers looks almost exactly like it's in the daytime
Yeah.
because it's basically reflected sunlight.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you zero in on just those flowers, it's just like a flat lighting.
Mhm.
Hey, Teddy, can I share my screen? I'll show you.
Sure, I think I've got it
night
turned on
shot.
so for anybody to share.
I took a night shot just a couple nights ago that seems apropos right now. Can you see that?
It's coming up. There it is. Yes. Oh yeah. With
Okay,
the
nice.
thing.
Yeah,
Burritos.
so this is just we were walking back from a street festival, and so this is handheld using a 35 millimeter 1.2, I think it is, but I'm shooting at 1.4. I think the ISO is about 2000.
That's
But it,
good
yeah,
depth of field for
Yeah.
1.2.
Yeah, and you have the sharpness at the burritos, huh? So
well, and I do find like even at really wide open apertures, especially like the night does a lot of things, including the light sharpens edges of stuff like on signs and such. So if you shoot against a building, even though like the crosswalk isn't tack sharp, but it doesn't need to be, but where you want to put the eye in terms of the focal plane, you can achieve that and still get a sense of depth with that. And the latitude of light is the dynamic range is narrower at light. So it's not as clear that things aren't sharp across the range. So here, the road doesn't really matter. I mean, it's sharp enough, but it's the building across the way that needs to be sharp.
I would say that if you really wanted to, you could probably do this handheld too. Take a second shot so you're focusing more like closer to the camera, so you would get more of the zebra markings
Yep.
in focus. But I don't think that's necessary in this shot.
no, no, no. It looks nice because you have in that Butchie's building is you have the same stripes more or less, huh?
Yeah, and the one thing that's like you discover things when you look at pictures. Up on the left side, there's that red window there. There's
Yeah.
actually a person in the doorway, and I didn't know that at the time I shot it, but I just missed having that person framed by the doorway. You have half of the person, so it'd have been better had the person been there. But I'll look next time I'm. This is only a couple blocks from my house, so I'll go by this spot again.
Yeah, if you're close to that, you should milk that for all you can.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is not my first picture of this scene.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
Actually, last week in Spain, I made a photograph like this, more or less as well, because I wasn't thinking of the idea of doing in the night, but when I was in Spain, I went out more every night for doing a walk. So that's giving me the idea of doing something in the night. I've placed one photo in Flickr. Can you see it, or can I
You can share. You
go?
should be able to share it.
Yeah. You are going to do it, Teddy, or I'm going to do
No, I
it?
think you're already.
you have to do the share.
Okay.
Yeah, you should. I got it turned on so everybody can share their screen.
You have to select your window that you want to share.
Let me see.
Or if you're having trouble, I can try to get it up on now.
I'm there. You can see it now, or not yet?
Not yet.
Let me see.
Aha, here it comes.
Oh yeah, that's lovely. I like how the neon is giving you that additional frame to play with.
It's kind of a liminal type of thing too. Of course, there's people in it, but it still has that feel.
And I make the blues more blue and the reds more red. And I darken it a bit.
Yeah, there's a lot you can be done with the color in that and still come up with something usable. Now, if this were my shot, I would clone out those posts on the street, but because those things are easy to clone out.
What would you clone out?
Those posts on the edge of the street, they're like the bumpers.
Oh, I like
Okay.
those. I like those. They add depth. They're a depth clue to the sidewalk.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Is this
And
close to where you live?
no, this is in
This is
Spain.
Spain? Okay.
Let me see how I go back. And the other one was this for next week. Is this one?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I like that curved blue car shape.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
I tried to do my best on the blue. This was white, totally
Mhm.
white. I filled it in. And here there was something to see, but I made it mostly black. I think it's working more when everything is more or less black than when you see something here.
Yeah, you're seeing there's a little bit of texture in there. Yeah, I think that I think going through the zoom, it sort of gives it blocks up some of the shadows, details. But I'm seen some of your work before, and I've known you don't get that kind of artifact. So I imagine this is pretty cool if I were to see it downloaded.
Yeah. And now, yesterday, I made one photo of it.
I,
It's like this one.
I really like how in the stained glass above it's almost like a blue vignetting on the top of the glass that kind of echoes the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah,
one I
that,
made
that's
as well
lovely.
yesterday. This was without the tripod. But it was not windy, so I had opportunity to make it.
So did you do this? How much of this did you do any cropping with this?
No.
So you shot with kind of with this in mind?
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, great. That's
I had made first that car photo and then I made this one.
yeah, that's a great path of inspiration there. I mean, whatever you looked at and said, "Oh, I think I'm going to shoot that." Most people wouldn't think this is a shot to take.
I think maybe this is too much orange here.
I mean, sure, yeah. This I think there's a lot you can probably do with that, but it's as is. It looks pretty good.
But actually this was white. I have made this orange. Because every light now is LED light and this light with the which they use for sun carving,
Mhm.
sun energy. I don't know how it's in America, but everything is white here now.
Like solar cells, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a change over here to a lot of LEDs as well. And then actually they have some that are they have a manufacturing flaw, so they actually are this kind of brilliant blue color. They're not neutral at all, and actually it's kind of fun to find one of those because it gives a somewhat surreal cast to the surrounding street.
I wanted to first I was thinking of making photographs of green lights, but I cannot find it any longer
Hmm.
because everybody has this kind of white light. So
I think I mentioned before the sodium vapor lights, those orangish yellow ones.
Yeah.
There is no other color in it. So if you take that, you can't pull out any other colors with it.
yeah.
It's frustrating.
And this was my first exercise I started. I'm not happy with that, but
No, it's got a beautiful minimalistic balance to it. I like the curve against the rectangles and the tie-in of the lights. And yeah, no, there's also like a modern window and an older window. So there's lots of interesting tensions, visual and otherwise on the image.
after this, I was thinking maybe I have to go for two colors So make it, minimalize it, not
Hmm.
a lot of things together with a lot of different lights.
I think you did good on this one, that's for sure. This reminds me, and not it doesn't really remind me, but this is kind of in the spirit of the woman with the hat from a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, give you tension. Huh? Okay, that's it.
Good job.
No, that's not good. I'm just busy with things.
No, I had some topics to talk about, and I was going to come in with more AI stuff, but I'll save that for later because I'm kind of tired of talking about AI. I don't know if you guys are or not. Um, but I do have, we were talking about highlights. Uh, like, what are your concepts of blown highlights? So, what's too much of a blown highlight, and when are highlights that are technically blown, meaning it's pure white? When is that okay?
The sun. When it's the sun, it's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But till uh, a certain level. Huh? It depends on the rest of the photo as well.
Yeah. And sometimes like I don't get too fussed if specular highlights are a bit blown. I mean, sometimes I'll knock them down, but sometimes you end up making everything so dull because you're chasing after one or two little highlights.
mm-hmm.
And it's better just to either come around it a different way. You can actually modify that part of the picture if you need to push that far. But I'm actually there's been lots of cases where I've been oddly surprised or accidentally surprised by a terribly exposed image on my part being kind of cool. And, aesthetically, like I think I would use I think it's best if things are properly exposed and you retain your highlights, but there are times when it doesn't matter so much because aesthetically what you've produced is still interesting. I
Yeah,
think you should try to control your highlights because if you don't, you have no information. But that can work out, but it's not necessarily going to work out.
And we are photographers, so we need light. So
Yeah.
we need to have it. So if it's too much, well, they say sometimes about sharpness as well. When you have too much on sharpness, it's not a good photo. But
A sharp im yeah, a sharp
sometimes,
image of a fuzzy concept.
yeah,
yeah.
sometimes it's working.
Well, you have also with well, pure white highlights, you can have high key photography
Yeah.
where you do have a lot of white border or something like that, or silhouettes, which would be high key. But I think like if you're shooting, especially if you were talking about the sun, this sky, uh, there by nature there should be no no detail in
No,
certain areas, but
no,
it should look natural,
no.
and
What
there
I
shouldn't
just
be like all vast of areas that are all blown.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just
The
showed you the photo with the lamp. In lamps, you have mostly you have a part which have no definition as well.
yeah.
So
Well, and then people talk about this in terms of stars as well as halation, because those are both kind of effects of too much light, and then if you have too much halation on light, it can look a little bit goofy, but a little bit actually looks really good. Then people put filters on their lenses to even get a little bit more of that.
Mm. Yeah, well, technically, if you get like star points, those they don't exist in real life. Those are artifacts, but people immediately they don't even notice that it's not real. They enjoy it, and they are enjoyable. They're pleasurable to see, unless they go overboard. Because I remember back in the '70s, I had one of these screw-on star filters with a little wire, so
Yeah.
every light source had a little starburst coming from each one, but that looked totally phony.
Well, if you look at James
but
Webb, you can tell when they're using the diffraction spikes on the stars.
Well, I'm going to share an image of mine. Let's see where I'm going to go ahead and just take this desktop over. And this is a landscape that this one. Can you see that
Oh
landscape?
yeah,
yeah,
it's lovely.
that was like I was like, holy crap, I can't believe I'm here seeing this because those clouds are just rolling by and sunbeams were raking across the scene. So when I was did a stitch panorama with this. I think this is like 17 images altogether. So it's a
Wow.
very large image, but the sun was like piercing, when the sun was coming out, it was piercing. And I still can't figure out what to do with that bright spot. You can see where I've done a little bit with it, but it just got it too muddy.
Mhm.
When you get a pure white area and you try to make it darker, it just turns gray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that blown area is just, I think the only salvaging would be for me to clone in some clouds to put in over the blown area. And I don't really want to do that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is tricky because as you say, if you any adjustments you make other than putting something different there is going to just be gray. You can't knock
Yep.
that down. So you either live with it or clone it out. Or I mean the replacement tool sometimes will bring like I wouldn't do it maybe for something as big as that, but for like a small spot, like or even on a light, sometimes you can have it bring in something that's a bit better. So you
Yeah,
have
if
to
you
be
go
very
full
selective with it.
size.
But for you, is it too much, Terry?
Yeah, like this area right here, I tried to introduce some blue because that was pure white, but it just doesn't look right. And because you can see the glare coming from the sun was like right in behind these clouds.
And
So
sometimes I've heard that, I've done it as well. They paint with gray in a soft layer.
but you see all kinds of detail here. I got somebody in the car with two people out there, and you can see the
Very nice.
way
Yeah,
the
it's
cabin,
amazing detail.
and there's a
What's the
dust
size
spot
of
there
the
too.
image?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, that's yeah, a problem with blown highlights.
You cannot accept for yourself that it's too much.
Yeah, as much as I love this photo, it's a failure.
Could you on another layer? This is now we're getting into goofiness. So if you create another layer and pulled maybe some of the clouds from the left-hand side, brought them underneath, and then just played with the transparency a little bit, because then you would at least have, I mean, you would have clouds that were being illuminated from the same angle of the sun. And then it would be a matter of getting the right kind of blend because if you pick, I'm pointing on my screen, but the ones from the left over there to the other side, on one, like the one bit farther, like in here, the ones right here, some of those might work over there because they're also quite strongly backlit.
Yeah, well, where the problem you run into, yeah, I've experimented with that kind of thing. But you notice the glare coming off the top of the
Yeah,
mountain. It just doesn't match if you do that because that glare was because the sun was right there.
yeah,
So if you try to make that dark, it just looks unnatural.
yeah.
I'd have to come in and paint in all that flare.
But you're retired, you have time.
Yeah, that's right.
Hmm.
I also notice here, sometimes you can see, I don't know if you can see the defect in the stitching here.
Oh yeah, just
There's
a little dot.
another dust spot here too. That's my Nikon D850, which is a DSLR.
So a
So it's
dust
much more
factor.
susceptible to dust spots. So, but I've got another example, and I'm going to go to I'm going to sharing the screen here. I'm going to go to my albums, and then I'm going to go down to grayscale tools.
Oh, interesting.
I created these grayscale images for different sizes because you can overlay these for different sized images. And the little dots are transparent. It's up there. If you download these, they're pink files, PNG files. So the white, there won't be white dots, there'll be clear dots. So and then on back into Photoshop, if I can get to the right thing, here's one of them here.
A portable zone system.
Yes, that's the point. Now here is your photo from this one,
Hmm.
Jeff. So, and then if open my layers thing is covered with your guys' faces. Okay, so I put this zone tool,
Oh, very cool.
and you can just drag it. It's a layer on top. You can just drag it around, and you notice the little dots. You can
Yeah,
see
can match it up.
what's what. So I think this is as close as you're going to get to, the brightest, like no detail with zone X, zone
Hmm.
10. And you do have some, I think that especially with black and white photography, I think this is a useful tool.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and it's hard. Like with this camera, if I've blown the highlights, they're gone. So I usually am shooting zero point 0.3 or zero point 0.7 exposure compensation lower. So I'm underexposing just a little bit just to try to hold because I can bring up the shadows forever. But if I've lost the highlight, it's not coming back. So it's something like so in camera you can control or try to mitigate the potential of blown highlights. So that's a good thing to do to figure out how to use exposure compensation. And then the nice thing, well, we've talked before, like the very first thing I do with a photo, and this one I would have done it too, is I set my black and my white, the extent to the data I have, and I work within that. And so if I've got a lot of blown highlights, of course, I'll just have a bunch of just solid white, no information. And I'll sometimes crop that stuff out, because sometimes it's a sky if or a bright spot. So I can sometimes come in a little bit off of that if it's problematic in terms of the image. I really like this tool, Teddy. That's pretty cool.
You can download those as just the ping files. So
Yeah.
just go into my albums thing. And remember, you probably want to have the length. This is 3750 pixels wide.
Mhm.
So that's plenty of room to move around. So you probably want to make sure your width doesn't exceed the width of your image.
Yeah, there's a tool within Lightroom, and I think it would be in Photoshop too. If you're playing around with or you're creating a mask, you can create a mask according to a luminance value. So, for instance, I can drag the dropper around, and I could find, let's say, a 3 or a 2, and then only what's within that luminance value will be masked.
Yeah, yeah.
That's sometimes a way to, especially to if you've got like the highlights you were showing in that previous one, Jan, where you're trying to kind of bring it down just a little bit.
Yeah.
That tool is really useful for that kind of thing.
Yeah. Actually, with this tool, you can see that this photo have not too much light, huh? Because in zone X you have not too much. Mostly you have in the gray and the blacks.
So you shot this with the black and white camera, or just
Yeah.
the black and white?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, monochrome lens or monochrome sensor, so no color information. I did take a picture of the not of this particular moment, but another one I saw in your comment about the having color information here would be distracting, and I agreed with that. So I like the black and white images better because it is all about structure. So black and white's really good just for kind of focusing your attention on that.
Now, what time of day was that?
This would have been probably in the early, like just before sunset.
And
So,
yeah,
and I'm
because
shooting south, I think.
wasps or bees or a lot of insects, they'll go to sleep. You'll find them asleep in the morning sometimes.
Yeah.
But that was in the evening. So I'm curious about the wasp getting stuck there.
Well, he wasn't stuck. He was just kind of poking around, but when I caught him, that's just where he was relative to the structure of the
Ah,
plant. But there's another one I could show you later in my photo stream where I did one in black and white and another one in color, but he's kind of perched on the edge of one of those top flower pieces and looking very sinister, but it's all about, as you said, the silhouette. So that's what I wanted to catch him in. But this was kind of unusual to get a silhouette with, looking down at the wasp, so to see the wing structure. So that's what caught my eye.
oh yeah, when you get the vein structure of the wings, that's always a good thing. Same thing with leaves and things like that, where you see the capillary things going through the leaves.
I am going to get stung soon though, because I've been getting awfully close to some of these flowers when they're full of bees or full of wasps. So wish me luck.
You're more likely to get stung by wasp, and I've been taking a lot of bee photos around a lot of bees, and I've only been stung once, and that was because I grabbed a
Mm.
flower that had ended up grabbing the bee.
Oh no.
It stung the palm of my hand. But I'll be amongst all these bees, and they don't seem to they don't care unless you really are messing with them.
Yeah.
But and there are hornets are on the other hand are another story.
Yeah. They'll come at you.
Yeah, because I was trying to get an epic battle between a grasshopper and a hornet. I thought, man, this is going to be great with a macro. And the next thing I knew, this hornet was right up my nose,
Oh
like
gosh.
eye to eye. So nope, that's okay. I'll leave it alone.
So one thing with this image, so this is a 28 millimeter lens, and it's got a macro mode. So that's just right on the lens. And I think my working distance is about 4 inches, maybe 5 inches at
Oh yeah.
most. So it's a different kind of macro because you are very wide. So it's kind of almost an environmental macro. I sometimes will throw a close-up filter on this, and then that reduces my working distance to about 2 inches. And then you get these, far more surreal, just kind of thin slices. And I find that's really kind of interesting to do sometimes, especially if you want to kind of capture the curve of something in an interesting way. And it comes in and out of the focal plane, of course.
That was a nice shot. And I like it. Like I said, I think everything, all the lines are pointing to where you want the eye to go. But it's got there's an openness to it.
Mhm.
So, and I was trying to also talk about how you're supposed to trap the viewer's eye, just like a spider. You're going to try to like a web, or like when you take a photo. You're going to set things up so that everything comes to place, like frame the shot and wait kind of thing. So that's just like you're fishing. But you
Yeah.
can also think of it as like going to trap it. You're going to trap your prey like a spider. But also, I've been shooting up into the sky lately. Uh, when you go out in the garden, just when it starts to get light, and an hour and a half later, here comes the sun. I mean, the sun's pretty high because there's a lot of trees around our garden, and so I'll try to get some bokeh in the background,
Mhm.
and you can see what I mean when that. I'll only put my. I just posted that when I saw this photo. I posted that. Where I am, Safari.
Oh, yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah, that's what I was shooting up. That's just a maple tree filtering through the maple leaves.
Now, is this a stack or a single exposure?
That's a stack, and it's actually at this point the convection of the sun's going to start
Yeah.
boiling up some wind. So if you take a look at this close, um, you can see some wind, like right there.
Hmm.
It's not really bad, but you end up with some weird things
Hmm.
because there's motion blur. But anyway, I'm going to stop my sharing.
So this, I don't know if this, I mean, it's interesting when with the stacking that you're doing, uh, with astrophotography, there are a lot of tools that will automatically control the focus of the camera. And you're doing that because the changes of temperature and humidity and things like that change the atmosphere. So you have to kind of adjust to retain focus across a run. And they do have sequences that you can use with Nikon and cameras where you will, for instance, tell it to, okay, do this program, and over a course of time, it will make adjustments. So when people are shooting, let's say, a solar eclipse, you can go through a series of bracketing sequences that the camera is basically doing following a program, but you don't actually have to make those adjustments as you go. It will basically run that sequence. I wonder if anyone's developed kind of a stacking procedure. Again, it's the same principle in that you can establish a start point and an end point for your area of focus, and then run a sequence where the camera is just automatically going through that itself without you having to make those adjustments for the step intervals.
As far as focusing, I think they do things like you're talking about, where you
Mhm.
combine images like you would a focus stack, but you're not really you keep the same focus. When I was more trying to get outside at night and take photos, I struggled with trying to make the stars sharp
Yeah.
because you can't. I mean, next thing you know, you get there, the thumbnail looks great, but you blow it up and the stars are a smudge.
Oh, yeah, or bloated. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a Bakhnetoff mask. It's
Yes.
a mask that creates a diffraction pattern that gives you finer focus and you can achieve visually two
I've
different.
used that and it's better. It does better, but I still don't get it right. I found it's best if I just zoom my LED screen
Mhm.
and just focus with that. And I tried focus stacking too. So like if one of these, if I shoot 10 at that close to infinity, you're only going to get 3 or 4 shots tops.
Mhm.
So I thought one of those is going to come up right. Nope, it doesn't. It skips over the part, like it just drives me nuts. But there's all kinds of other things. Like you worry about hot pixels and you have to have
Yeah.
a black
Yep, you
layer
need a
between them
light
and things.
frame and a dark frame,
Yeah, there's
and they
all
have
it's
to be the
very
same amount
complicated.
of time as your exposure to kind of
Mhm.
compensate for the interference from your electronics.
Yeah, and you can get hot pixels with focus stacking in general. In fact, if you, and I'm not sure it's the hot pixels. If I slow down the stack so it's not so rapidly firing, because I think it'll probably fire off like one every 1/10 of a second for a stack. And that's when the hot pixels will occur. If you slow that down so it's more like a half a second or a second between shots, no hot pixels.
Hmm.
But you do get these hot pixels, and I can see if I can share again here. I'll just grab one from and go into my some images that I took this morning that I haven't. No, I didn't. I haven't stacked those yet. Let's see, because it has to be 809. Okay, one of these here are not processed. So if I open this, I'm probably not going to have one here on it. There we go. You see this little streak?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's a hot. Those are hot pixels,
Oh really? Interesting.
and I have to literally go out and clone those all out. Sometimes there are a lot of them. Sometimes they're not. It's just more of a pain in the neck than anything else.
Hmm.
Uh, so, but if you slow that down, see, there's a streak there like that. If you slow down the process, no more hot pixels. But when you're worried about wind and things like that, and you don't want to have to take 200 shots, it's going to take like 4 minutes. I say it's a lot easier just to clone out the hot pixels.
Yeah.
For my opinion, Teddy, what is a hot pixel?
Hot pixel is actually a trail. You can see that. Let me get that one up here we had right off the bat. Now you see this trail, like a meteor or something like that.
Mhm.
Each dot is a shot. That's there's a hot like if I were to, I could probably find those pixels on each individual image, and you would see that those pixels are replicated on that exact position of that streak.
Mhm.
So when you
Most
focus stack it, it doesn't know any better. The fat stocking software just thinks it's a sharp edge.
Okay.
So then it shows up as these streaks. Now, there could be a trick in Helicon Focus or something like that where they can prevent that. I need to talk to people because I haven't found anything like that. But that sounds like something they would easily be able to find when something has a hot pixel streak.
So actually, it's happening with stacking.
Well, it's
Yes.
happening in the camera too, though, because like a hot pixel, like if our sensors have millions of photo sites, and some of those photo sites basically aren't functioning correctly some of the time, sometimes all of the time. And so your camera will have the ability to detect hot pixels, and sometimes it will just map them out. If you look at maybe some of your night photography, you may notice that there's like a bright kind of reddish yellow or reddish white spot kind of illuminated around dark. and that's just a hot pixel. So sometimes your camera will sweep for those on some routine and map them off, or you can go and just kind of remove them in post.
Yeah, this is a 370% magnified view. Anyway, uh, they're a pain in the neck.
They can be. They can
Yeah.
knock out a whole row sometimes too. They can create some interesting effects with surrounding photo sites.
No, of course, if you slow down the process, no hot pixels. It's
Hmm.
just when the rapid fire, it's like I said, about every tenth of a second, an image is fired when you uh, do this, or maybe not a tenth of a second, more like a half a second.
So well, the camera heats up as you rapidly fire,
Yep.
and when you heat up a camera, it will have more noise.
How many pictures you have here, Lee?
Let's see. This is. Let me go back to bridge. 57. Now, I probably also shot 10 on the left end, on the front end, and 10 on the back end that I take off that aren't usable.
Yeah.
But so then they were instrumental in creating hot pixels, even though they're not present here. And that's sometimes I'll have like a 200 image focus stack if you're really close too. But the closer you are, the more likely it is you're going to have a lot of images in a focus stack, as opposed to when I was talking about trying to focus stack the stars. When you're close to infinity, there's not much play that will go with that. But when you're really close to something, there's all kinds of room to change front and back position
Hmm.
relative to the area you're trying to photograph anyway.
Nice.
So I'll stop sharing
Yeah, so
again.
much detail.
Yeah, that's a good thing about that. But again, like you don't. I think that works okay with a shot like this. But sometimes you don't want that much detail. You want some detail, but you want some that isn't. You don't want them all to be like that. I tend to be kind of draftsman-like with a plan view and elevation view of
Hmm.
flowers. Uh, so I'll usually do those first. I'll shoot a straight on, head on into a flower, and then I'll do on a profile on the side. And then while I'm doing that, I'm trying to size up other angles. But anyway, I was talking about the blown highlights. Uh,
On the topic of highlights, it is worth just mentioning shadows as well, because I think people struggle as much with highlights as they do with the shadow end of the histogram. And it's really easy for people to just either crush them so much that they're actually losing detail. And that really dark detail can be really important in terms of giving a sense of structure and a sense of depth, or they push and try to elevate those shadows too much, and all they do is introduce a fair bit of noise into their
yeah.
image. So handling the light and the dark is slightly different. The darks are a lot more forgiving, but it can have real consequence in
Oh,
terms
yeah.
of the tonality curve of the photo.
Especially if you end up with a JPEG, uh, fresh shadows will turn into blocks, like
Yeah.
big pixelization or something like that. So I think it's a good idea to try to make yourself generate that stuff, make those fail, so you can see how it happens. And at what point did you how far did you move the sliders to get those failures? Same thing with almost everything else. Figure out how much oversaturation is too much, because you
Mhm.
can do something like you can darken the luminance of a color, like yellow, and the next thing you know, all of a sudden these red spots show up. Because you're doing too much. I don't know why that happens, but just it doesn't hurt to play around with those controls all the way to one end to the other just to see what happens.
Yeah.
Mm.
And where we go on. Okay, here's one. I've been thinking about this a long time because I often talk about a value of a photo is increased or decreased depending on certain things. Like if you have a distracting element in a photo, the value of the photo decreases. That doesn't mean it's a failure as a photo, but its value is less as far as like if you're ready to be able to remove that distracting element, you have an incrementally better photo. So I was thinking two different ways to think about this. One is use a symbolic $100. And is what things would add up to that $100 to make it a perfect photo? What things would detract from it? The second thing I was thinking about, and the better analogy might be for a good recipe. Like when is something too much? Like just salt, just way too much salt, or not salty enough, or so forth. But what would you think about either one of those concepts as far as value? I hate to think about somebody just thinking, "Oh, all you're going to do be adding up values of what's going on," because you should have a feel for it without thinking about that. But
Yeah,
I think,
but it has to do with taste as well. And you're talking about salt, but some people like eating salt,
yeah.
and other people they don't like too much salt. So it
But I think
depends.
we shouldn't think too much about the value. But I think that is a good way to try to learn more about it. And then you're not going to be thinking about that $100 every time you take a photo, but you'll know more about what you're looking for, maybe.
Mhm.
Well, and again, I think the taste matters, context matters, but like to start with your first metaphor of money or value, um, I think there's a benefit if the components within the image, the elements that make up the image, have a clarity of purpose, or so there's a clarity of what you've captured in the frame, and it's all contributing to the overall image. So the window in the car that you shared with us earlier, I think that it's minimalistically balanced. It has everything needed to kind of create that tension that you're showing in terms of the geometry, in terms of the light and the contrasts, so there's really not anything extraneous there. So in that kind of case, and I think there are a lot of photos that benefit from that clarity, where everything in there kind of adds up to the value of the $100 bill or whatever, but it contributes to the whole. There are other photos where we talk about what people have included, and so you should crop that out. It's distracting. So this idea of distraction, it reduces the attention to the statement or the story that you might be trying to tell with the image. But that gets a little bit tricky too. In a previous call, we talked a little bit about, I think I brought up Bruegel's images or his paintings. If you were to talk about one of his street scenes, there isn't one story. There's like layers and layers of stories being told. And it depends on where your eye is. And that's part of the artistry. That's part of the vision of what's brought together. And, so I've got one photo that I've been trying to think about whether I would share. Well, can I bring one up?
Sure, of course.
This is maybe a way to talk about value for me. Can you see that?
Coming
No.
up. There it is. Skateboard.
All right. I like this image. I think it works, and I've got a series of 5 of them. So I was shooting this a couple of weeks ago downtown. So in terms of your value metaphor, in particular, I think the 2 guys there work really well because they're all part of the same scene. But then those 2 women, or the 2 people down below, they are in the context, and I decided I wanted to keep them there, but they're also not part of this moment in terms of what the camera is focusing on. So I think it'd be fair for people to look at this and say, well, it's all good, but cut those other 2 folks out because that's pulling my eye away from it. Whereas I could argue in terms of why I kept it in, that puts it in the context of like these guys are skateboarding in a very public place with all kinds of stuff going on around them. And it's part of the layer of what's happening in that part of the city. So, again, it is subject to interpretation, but I could see people saying, well, this other couple over here detracts the value of this image.
Yeah, if you ask me, I would clone these 2 people out or I would uh, ask AI to delete them, but
Mhm.
I think it's better when they are not in a photo.
I think it depends on what you want to do with the photo. If it's important to you to show this as other people here too, it's a busy park or
Mhm.
something like that. That's one thing. But if I is that a better photo than zeroing in on the dynamics of this guy doing the skateboarding and the other
Yeah.
guy watching him?
I'll show you another example from this series. So again, what I'm purpose and I think this kind of answers what I was trying to do. I was trying to catch the skaters in the environment. So in this one, I've got, three people looking at the skater. So this
Yeah,
one works better with the additional elements
I
in
think
my,
so, yes. Yeah.
but it also, there's one other one here. There. So here's more of the context.
Yeah.
So it probably would be a stronger $100 bill if it was just the two skaters there. But to me, it's visually interesting to see down into that other space that I've shot before where all the dancers are. But
Yeah.
again, it's a judgment call.
Hmm.
Those dancers are roller skaters.
They're
Yeah,
dancers.
Oh,
you see, you work your shot, eh? Because the third one is the best.
This one?
The third one is the best.
Yeah, I
And,
was playing around a fair bit, but I think I had the shutter locked down at about 1/500th of a second.
mhm. No, that's
But again, shooting 28 millimeters, so
yeah,
having
that's
to play
possible.
around a little bit. But
But
again, I just thought that was a way of
I see as well that in these three photos there are two where the people are at the right of the border, eh?
yeah. There's I might as well show
It
you one.
gives tension.
Yeah.
well, this
Well,
particular
yeah,
one,
and
you
that's
notice
what I was
all the
trying to
people are
do.
looking at the skateboarder, and that's where I like to think about when you have these people uh, in a group of people that are looking at something and there's a direct object involved. In that
Yeah.
case, the direct object is the skateboarder. Where people are looking in all in different directions, there's no direct object. Using the metaphor of a sentence,
Yeah.
grammar.
Yeah. But this is an example of, I said earlier, like I like to bring up a sequence. So I shot all these pictures within about 2 or 3 minutes of one another, starting with these. These are the three, then this one, then this one, then this one, then this one. So to me, that, the five together tell a kind of story. But in this case, I wanted deep layer to also be part of that because the context within which they're skating also was part of what I was wanting to show. But again, I think the criticism, as you said, John, like clone those guys out, crop those others out because they're extraneous. That's valid critique.
I think if you're going to display these as five images together, that tells more of a story, so that makes it less important to clone
Mhm.
out extraneous people. I think when you're going to show that photo as a lone photo, though, I think the two women on the left side need to be cloned out.
Yeah. Here, I'll show you one more.
Yeah.
And again, I've been thinking of posting this one into weekly, but I haven't decided yet. But again, there's a lot going on in this picture,
Yeah.
and it takes some time to scan it. But I don't know if it's $100 bill or a $50 bill.
You didn't think of making it panorama?
My style, I just shoot one exposure. I want everything in one exposure.
Surprisingly, if you do this with a panorama with people moving, Photoshop does a great job of
Yeah.
reconciling that stuff.
I was more interested in, and it's one of these funny things where so I started off with this as a 16:9, but then I kept changing to a different ratio because I realized some interesting things were happening with the vertical of the building. And then it wasn't until later that I realized there was a guy up there watching them, which
Yeah.
became the focus point for the image.
Hmm. But I think you're gambling in two horses.
Well, it's a great building.
The building is great, but it's both they are asking attention, the dancers and the building.
Mhm. But I guess that was what I was saying earlier. There, like the context matters when you're trying to think about the whole,
Yeah.
because in a shot like this, I'm going for layers. I'm going for complexity. I'm not going for minimalism. There will be other kinds of shots where that's not the case.
Yeah, one thing I like about this photo, it almost makes me feel like I'm there. You can almost feel the breeze in the city, uh, and you can hear the sounds. Uh, and your
Yeah.
layers, you don't have like there are cars in the background, but they're like minimized to the point where who cares? Um, I think this, just that playing around with it. I think if you, it would have been cool to be shoot from really, really low
Hmm.
with the building in the background, but there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah. So anyways, it's a lovely place to go shoot because again, it's very
Yeah.
lively, lots of depth, lots of,
Yeah,
and when I shoot in there, I'm usually shooting with a fairly wide lens for that reason.
it's a good place to shoot, huh?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Heading back into that part of the city tonight. So
Hmm.
it won't be quite like this though, because it's a Sunday night.
Hmm.
But like using the value metaphor or analogy or whatever, I, I'm loath to try to make people think, well, all you wanted to do is get points. You're going to add up point to make a good photo. And I don't think we ought to go down that road of criticizing a photograph because of points. But
No.
of your own work, that's another story.
Mm-hmm. But part of, I don't think I mean, thinking about the total, not so much as how many, but are the elements within the photo contributing to what you're trying to show? Or is there extraneous detail there that's just kind of, like people will talk again about distractions. It's pulling my eye away from where I can't quite figure out what's going on. Like, it's not like there's one answer to it, but there are times when people's um, photos that they present would be much stronger if they were to just kind of, zoom in on one thing or kind of isolate one thing a little bit more clearly, directing the eye to a certain thing as opposed to having it wander. But there are times when letting it wander is maybe a way to allow people to explore an image too. Like both are valid, but I think people more often are not attentive to what's within the frame. And so, you have all this beautiful stuff, and then you have a bunch of trash cans on one side or some such thing. If you want the trash cans there, fine. But if you had no sense of that and they just happen to be there, well, you could frame things a little bit more carefully.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If we are asking for critics in weekly, and if we get critics, then we are not happy with the critics. So uh, if you have 10 answers and 7 people say that you have to take that can out, then you have to do it, I think, because 7 of 10 is the majority, and then you have to do it because who am I to say that it needs to be in? If I have good arguments to tell them that it need to be in, then it's different. But sometimes I keep my opinion, but not mostly not, because
Yeah.
7 out of 10 is too much for me.
Well, I liked your metaphor earlier about, me gambling on two horses at once, because I mean, I think about you've talked before about how when you go out, you kind of start off and you need to warm up a little bit. And, I think sometimes when you first encounter something, you may just be looking at it and taking lots of different things, but it takes a while to zero in on what you actually see that you want to look at more carefully. And,
Mm.
it is kind of nice to see a sequence or a movement through a series of pictures in terms of how that develops. And even, the nice thing about a place like this, I've been going back to this location in the city for, you know, 30 years. So
Yeah.
I have a way of thinking about it because of the many times I've been there, and I know when to go there in terms of light or people or events. So that changes how you engage with the things that you shoot.
And it depends on how you work as well, and how many photos, and how many times you are there, and
Yeah.
how is your way of waging your photos. So when you are going to publish and when not. Uh, some people publish only their best photos. Other
Hmm.
people are publishing when they have shooten half an hour in the night, and then they set everything on Flickr.
Yeah.
So it's all different kind of manners how to handle your stuff. And if you compare photographers with all the different backgrounds, it's different. It's difficult to say uh, because you only see the photo. This
Hmm.
is an 8 and this is a 6, or this is not enough.
Yeah.
And of course, that can be like we're talking about like art type of photography compared to journalism, because the value of the narrative in journalism is overriding. Period.
Hmm.
Like the Tiananmen Square guy. That's a horrible photograph. I mean, if say if somebody were to say, "Oh, this is a guy walking across the street in a military parade in China," people would think this photo sucks. But since we know that that's not what was going on at all, that this guy, the brave individuals, was standing down a tank. Totally different story.
Hmm.
But if you just saw that photo and with no reason, no story behind it, you would think, oh, you could imagine something like that going, something brave and somebody really trying to fight against the oppression. But a lot of people might just look at it as just a shot of a guy walking across the street.
Hmm.
Yeah, sometimes you need the explanation of a
Yeah.
photo. And so, therefore, headers are important as well. So,
But I
uh,
think with art photography, though, the less explanation, the better. I think if you have to try to talk somebody into liking a photo, I don't think that's a good thing.
yeah.
And if you do, it could backfire.
It's like having to explain a joke.
Yeah.
But sometimes it helps to explain something of a photo. If you want to tell something with a photo and it's not totally clear, because there are maybe too much elements in a photo, and you can explain it by text, especially in journalism, it's important, I think.
Oh, yeah. For journalism, absolutely. And anyway, it's whatever floats your boat in a lot of ways. But again, we live in a society of other photographers. And if you Google photography, good photography, you get these YouTube videos about what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do, and so forth with composition or exposure, how you're supposed to use your camera, blah, blah, blah. And then you have the context of the genre you're shooting. Are you a birder? Are you a landscape photographer? Are you a street photographer? Or a sports photographer? There are rules within each one of those genres. So I don't know when you talk about people breaking the rules from within those genres, what does that really mean? I mean, does that mean you're going to do something new with it that's going to improve it? Or are you just trying to be Beavis and Butthead, breaking the law, breaking the law?
And
What's,
both are valid.
yeah.
I mean, I think there's a lot of folks who just don't have an appreciation or reference to rules as have been described. But I think a lot of folks just kind of might enjoy an aspect of the process where the product is so much more just what they are paying attention to. And if they like the look of something, that's actually all that matters.
If it looks good to them, that's
That's
one thing. But
Yep.
it depends on what you want to do with your photography. If you want it to be part of the the population of photographers, is that something you're going to worry about at all? Or
Well, I mean this in the nicest possible way. I don't think the general population of photographers has very highly formalized taste, or similar taste. I mean, it's all over the map, and so you will adjust within certain communities of folks. So, we see this all the time when I first showed up in Weekly, it took me a little bit of time to dial into, oh, okay, maybe I should be thinking about what I put forward a little bit differently. But I think a lot of folks, photography is very personal, and it's the thing that they created, and they're going to be fairly committed to that. And it could be for a specific audience again. So the audience definitely matters. So if you're putting things forward for critique, for review, then you should be kind of willing to kind of take that and then kind of adjust to it. And one way you can respond to critique is just not accept it. Well, that's fine, but this is what I was doing, and I'm happy that you have this opinion, but this is how I'm going to do it. I like gambling on two horses, and but I think for folks who are trying to progress into a certain genre of photography, or who are competing, or who are kind of trying to do something more committed or professional, then the stakes are different.
I think, yeah, the genre makes all the difference in the world too. So,
Yeah,
like if you're a birder,
you can be stubborn, eh? And you can
I sure can be.
yeah, you can say, well, this is my way of photographing.
Yeah,
So and everybody has to accept it. But why are you asking for critics then?
yeah.
So
I do think. Oh,
and,
sorry.
and in one way, stubbornness is good because you have your meaning. You are what you do.
Yeah. I think that people are more on track to discover what their style actually is
yeah.
if they don't get too bogged down by other people's criticism. And but at the same time, I think people can be prompted to be more polished and more professional, or more intentional is the word I always land on, because I think you can develop a better way of taking photographs with the skill development, with reference to different approaches. But then you can just also get better at your craft if you're thoughtful about the output. And it doesn't really matter. I mean, it can matter, but it's not definitive that you need that feedback from other people or a certain group of people. But if you are kind of striving to get better, what you output is still something that you're going to determine. And I think a lot of folks strive to do something that looks like a lot of stuff out there. Other people strive for something that looks very different. And then that's going to be what's going to drive them into a particular style of photography.
Mhm. Yeah, and the other thing is that well, if you receive critics, you can do something with it, and you can do nothing with it, and can do you can say, well, I have had these critics, I do something with it, and next time I do it better. Or you can lay it down and say, well, I don't do anything with it. We are good friends, and well, that's it.
Well, I think from a cynical side of me, I would say that 50% of the people who claim that this is just my style, or I'm being some type of revolutionary photographer, are just making excuses for having a bad photo. That's the cynical side of me. I'm
Mhm.
not saying that's actually what happens, but I do think there's a lot of that going on. Um, but to me, it's more like you get. It should be what you do. You should be inspired by what you're trying to capture, and whatever you show people, the first thing that somebody notices is something that's wrong with it is not a good thing, especially if it's something that's like uh, common compositional errors or something like that.
Mhm.
I mean, you might say, "Oh yeah, you're right. You know what? The rule of thirds would work, but it's way out of whack, or the rule of space isn't doing." You wouldn't be thinking about that first. Somebody would point it out to you later. But what should happen isn't the overriding inspiration that you started with this photograph to make it what they think is a good photo.
Mhm. And I think another thing is, when you were talking about the value of a photo with the $100 bill again, I think for a lot of folks, the value of the photo is it's something that I captured when I was doing something. It doesn't really matter what so I was in a part of the city that I enjoyed being with. I was at a festival, I was out for an evening, I was at a show, and the kind of retrieval of and capturing of a moment that you chose from a part of your life increasingly matters. And one of the things that over the last year or two, I guess I've been trying to move what I put up on Flickr from, I mean, I still bring stuff up from a long time ago and such into, I will post it. But I try to kind of have my Flickr feed kind of follow what I'm doing right now. So if someone is asking me, so what have you been up to? I say, well, go look at my Flickr and you can kind of see. So like if you look over the past couple of months, I'm mostly in the city, then a couple times in nature, and then I'm in these other places. And might not exactly track, but it actually tracks me through the world a little bit. And I choose to put stuff forward, not just because, I mean, in part because I think it's a okay photograph, but because that's what something I was doing, like the sh picture I showed you earlier today. I took that 2 nights ago. And if you know, in a given week, like most of the stuff that's up on Flickr right now from my photo stream in the past week, I shot last weekend or the week before. And so that connection to the now of my walking through the world taking a camera is something I aspire to use in part to what I put forward.
Mhm.
So, you know, again, that's different than constructing maybe a series, as we've talked previously,
Oh, yeah.
or, you know, kind of editing down to a certain number. But it's also a valid way to bring photos
Yeah, why not?
forward and put them into place.
I was thinking a few years ago I did only ICM,
Hmm.
only ICM, not more. But then sometimes I post it on my website, on the website of my photo forum. And well, there are people who cannot, uh, they cannot criticize that because they are, for example, bird photographers who have who want everything sharp.
Hmm.
So, well, that's difficult because I want to have critics, and they don't give critics because of it's not sharp.
Yeah,
So
I was
what?
actually thinking about putting like I take I think a lot of reasonable criticism from folks because I'm maybe not as committed to things being perfectly sharp. I'm rarely going for perfect. I think sharpness matters, but I'm okay bailing on sharpness for aesthetics every time. But they're my aesthetics. They might not be other people's aesthetics. So I was thinking of putting up, you know, a shot where I'm doing one of these crazy things with very, very shallow depth of field and putting in the title, assume I know it's not fully in focus. What else do you got? Because, you know, like it's just like
You
that
have to come up with an acronym for that.
well, yeah, I'll have to figure that one out. But it's just like if you put something up that's intentionally ICM and you get a bunch of critique back saying, well, it's not sharp, you just kind of go, no, and it was never intended to be. And you know, it's a matter of engaging someone who will actually look at the image and critique it. And you know, so you know, I think you sometimes have to signal to folks, especially in the general audience, like we have in Weekly, that this is the thing I'm doing. So sometimes you have to give a little bit of context, or else people will just say, well, this doesn't look like I expect a photo should look like. So boom, it's gone.
Well, I think your idea of what's not sharp is a lot different from a lot of people because there are a lot of photos that are just plain out of focus. The
Hmm.
whole image is out of focus. I mean,
Hmm.
but they still want to go ahead and post it. So, it's all a relative thing with sharpness, I guess. I kind of obsess with sharpness, but
But what's cool is with your obsessiveness with sharpness is how you also carefully construct where you blend into blur. You know, so the sh photo you shared this week, and you showed us that during our last Zoom call, is a really nice kind of play on, you know, sharp, 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 not so sharp.
yeah,
And you are choosing where that's happening through post. I'm doing a version of choosing that just through the optics and the choices in the camera rather than in post. But you know, the results are different. But I think, you know, again, that appreciation of what you want to draw attention to and what you differently want to draw attention to. But I love specular highlights. I like texture in a background that's blurred. Those kinds of things you can't get if everything is stopped down.
right. Yes.
But sometimes the levels of sharpness of people are not fitting, or the
Yeah.
levels of color are not fitting because one likes more saturation, other not.
Yeah.
One say, well, this is art, and other people say, well, this is too much.
Yeah.
Well, I like to when I try to review a photo, I try to, even though I'm not interested in a certain genre, but I still try to put that hat on and do what I know about that. Now, I think that to me that sticks within the realm of photography. When we move into the realm of illustration and digital painting, I don't want to monkey with that. That's fine what those people do, but I want to stick with photography. So I won't wear that hat because I don't really know enough about it. Um,
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it's unfortunate that people would say like a birder would go, well, I don't like this because all photography should be like a bird photograph. No, especially with ICM. I mean, ICM is really interesting. People have no imagination if they think that ICM is too out of focus. Like, what the heck?
No, but you have reality people as well,
Yeah.
huh? They have no imagination.
Yeah. So, and what time is it? Now, I want to jump back into the AI stuff I talked about earlier.
I got
Now,
to get some water a moment.
sure. No, that $100 thing I came up with was just out of the top of my head. I
Hmm.
mean, I'm not married to it.
Hmm. Here, while we're waiting for Jan to come, I'll just show you one more quick picture. This is on the focus topic. So this one's about I don't know, a $48 picture, maybe. So I just want to show it because of one thing. So I would have been a bit happier had I had those other two flower stalks in sharper focus. But this hit the spot where it was enough in focus. But the reason I like this picture is because of what's not in focus. And it's the specular highlights and the textures and the subtleties of the greens. So I will often choose a picture that I like because of what's not in focus as much as what is. And this is a good example of that.
Now, when you're talking about specular highlights, they can be problematic, but
Yep.
you can handle them. I would say in this particular shot, you should have stopped way down. You should reduce the exposure for those specular highlights and let the shadows fall where they may. I think that would have been a more interesting photo. And of course, if you stopped down, you would have had more depth of field.
And then if I had both of those things, I would have had more detail in the back. And I do have a stop down version of this, but this is the one I liked a lot better because I wanted the texture of the background, kind of painted or drawn this way. So
Yeah.
again, I'm looking for the drawing of the background to be more of this kind of texture than sharp and distinctive. So I'll knock down contrast rather than increase it for backgrounds like this.
Because I'll
But
do a
it's
lot of
just as
water
an
drop
example.
photos, and there's specular highlights all the time in those. So I'll reduce, like 3 stops
Mhm.
at least sometimes, and it still comes up with a perfectly fine photo, even though that specular highlight is still piercingly bright.
Yeah. Now that was at f4, but that was with a macro lens pretty close. But again, I'm just trying to account for like it's not just about separation. It's also like what's the texture, what's the kind of shifts of colors and distortion and diffraction that's caught up in the background. So that's what I'm trying to do when I'm blurring.
Yeah, specular highlights are also problematic with focus stacking too, because you'll get these weird halos.
Yeah.
But the only way you have to go in and find the separate images that where there you don't have the halos. Just stack those 3 or 4 images and then kind of feather them in, which is a lot of trouble.
Yeah. It was fun to shoot in the garden at this time because the cottonwoods were kind of dropping all of their stuff everywhere. So all of the flowers were covered in kind of a down of cottonwood.
And I was going to ask a question too, if I can find it here before we went into that. Oh, rats, where did I put it here? Because you mentioned 16 by 9. I'm trying to do more with 16 by 9. I do frequently do panoramas,
Hmm.
but I'm trying to stick with that 16 by 9. And by golly, I sure as heck, I did not save this one here. Oh, well. Well, here's one. Okay, here's one. I'll open this one up. This is a 16 by 9. And come on, get back into Zoom, share.
Oh, that's lovely.
I took this yesterday. And
Very nice.
Yes.
now, frequently, I'll take a shot like this and turn it square.
Hmm.
And when I took this, I took it vertically, so with the petals are very close to the edges. So that 16 by 9 on the right and the left was totally filled with a contextual fill. So, which is AI, I guess. But I used contextual fill before, long time before they started calling it AI.
So was there any kind of screen, like there's a bit of a square structure layered against that, or that could be Zoom compressing.
What's that now? With a
Oh, like on the background, I'm seeing kind of a square pattern, like almost pixelation. So I'm thinking that that's
yeah,
compression from Zoom.
yeah, I'm not seeing that at all. I think that could be from Zoom. Yeah,
Yeah, it's Zoom. It's Zoom compression. You've just confirmed it for me.
yeah. And there, see that little spot there I didn't touch out. That's a hot pixels.
Hmm.
I need to fix that one.
Wow, that is so sharp.
Whew.
But I like that breathing room you get with the 16 by 9. And 16 by 9, that rectangle is the golden rectangle. So
Hmm.
you can't go wrong with that in a way. So anyway, we were talking about more AI stuff. Fernando shared an interesting link, and since I've got my screen up,
I've seen, yes. About AI, eh?
yeah. And these are people that had this is specifically on Facebook, but I'm sure this is everywhere else. Where there are a
Yeah.
lot of course, there are a lot of Facebook groups. So people are taking somebody's photos, processing through some type of AI thing, and then posting them as their own work.
Yeah.
Where the left image is the original image, and here is an AI generated version. We were trying to make it more like a Disney character instead of what they really are. Or in this case, that's an AI modified photo. So I'm not sure what was done. It looks like possibly the legs were added.
I still have the flower up on my screen from you.
Oh, you know what? That's because I'm going to stop share. I thought I was sharing my screen. Okay. Share this one.
Yeah.
Again, this was specifically about Facebook, but we're talking about the left image is the original image by this guy, Gil Wiesen. And somebody posted, ran an AI process on it and posted this as their own photo.
Hmm.
Of course, you're in Facebook, so like people aren't going to really be. It's not like you published in a magazine or something like that. Here's another one with the AI man. Like there's, I don't really see how that left one is much of an improvement, other than the fact that maybe the legs on the left are probably AI generated from the original. And those are eggs, insect eggs. I've seen insect eggs similar to that.
Hmm. And with that it's kind of triangle and dot. Oh, wow, that's interesting. I've not.
See, I know maybe this would be more user friendly with this AI generated photo, but to me, I think the photo on the right is much better. For one thing, it's got both the legs are all included.
Yeah. And the backlight is better as well.
And now it's not. Let me refresh my page here. What figures it's not going to. Anyway, as that's loading, what do you think of that in general? What do you think about people doing things to photographs or any piece of art and making it to their own liking and then saying, hey, this is my stuff?
Yeah. It's very bad. Eh? It's bad for the industry as well.
Yeah. Well, and then, these are really blatant, and, so that's one thing. But, if you're using any of the tools, including within Adobe products, it's pulling pieces of some of these. And, when you do a generative fill, it will use things that have been mined from other people's art. So that I know some folks who, for that reason alone, will not touch any of these tools. They'll just refuse to.
But it proves that we are not far from don't see it any longer.
Yeah.
Well, my fear is that while it might seem that the vast majority of people understand the difference between plagiarizing work and barely modifying or being complementary to the original work. I mean, with the difference between they think it's okay to plagiarize something by just barely modifying it, and I think they are sometimes often think that they think it's complementary. I know my ex-girlfriend, who was a professor at Purdue University, a political science professor, and they had a lot of trouble with plagiarism with Asian students, particularly Chinese students. And there was a culture where if you copied something, it was you were complimenting the original author. So a lot of those kids that were getting kicked out of school didn't understand what was going on. So I think there could be a streak of that. Like,
They say
again,
that of painters as well. If you copy a painter, then you get famous.
yeah,
Well, but like a lot of people, like it's tricky because when I think of students learning to quote critics, there's a difference between people just plagiarizing or people who don't know how to incorporate critical voices in a way that's properly documented, and that can be a learned. You can teach that. When you get into, when you go to a museum and you see, or an art gallery and you see someone there with an easel, basically drawing a picture that is up on the wall. That's a long tradition of ways to
yeah,
develop your skills. And so again, I don't think there's any issues with that. It's just putting it forward as your own work, I think, is where you cross a line. Now, this shows us how ridiculously ineffective it is when people, put their signatures or their names or things like that on images. Like that's inconsequential. And today, it just doesn't matter if you do that. You can get rid of that so easily. Some cameras now are baking in digital signatures so that you know the exact camera from which that came from. I'm sure that can be defeated too, but it's maybe a little bit more in the DNA of the file that's generated from that camera. So if someone got into an argument, you might be able to get to that. But I don't know what happens in terms of the transformation from the original to the AI in terms of the resulting file back. It's possible that some of those identifying attributes get copied forward, but it's not seen here in terms of the image, or it's completely obliterated. But the other thing is that over time, I mean, the implications of this is that if you're a textbook manufacturer or publisher, you may not need to go to the world at large to get a picture of this little creature. You'll just be happy with the AI modified ones that are readily at your disposal because they're easier to source. So you start to kind of depart from, the truth of what this cool little bug looks like. And you have this AI generated one that will happily stand in place for it. And the possibility for confusion is huge.
yeah, because there are a lot of things like AI, like headshots, for example.
Hmm.
AI is doing that. I mean, other than the fact that a lot of photographers are going to lose jobs about it, I think that's a reasonable thing to do, to have AI headshots. But yeah, but if you take, like, you're basically talking about an AI headshot, somebody just uploading a photo with as a selfie, and then it puts you into a business suit, makes it look like a business environment or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're using someone else's photo, again, but that's where my fear is, though, that we might feel like that's just plain not right. We're all there, and there are probably a lot of people that will be nodding in agreement, but in reality, they don't care.
Mm.
Again, that's a cynical viewpoint, but I think there are a lot of people out there that are like that. And I would, I don't want to get into politics, but I think that's a problem that's going on right now, where
I
we
think
previously thought that we're people people aren't what we thought they were. Some of these people.
But I think anyone involved in commercial or product photography or real estate photography, this is a bracing time for them. A lot of that business has already disappeared and probably will continue to. Yeah, so it's just hard to know. On the for folks who are just doing this in a more of a creative endeavor, I don't know that it changes things so much, although I think that we should be uncomfortable and perhaps thoughtful about if we put something forward that's not ours. I mean, we have this conversation even around if someone takes an image of a mural or a shop window, what's your contribution to it is something that comes up. In this case, I mean, it is outright theft, I suppose. And it's a lot worse, but it's along that same continuum where you may be misrepresenting. A difference if you are doing something like a shop window or a mural is that if you're there imaging it, you may also be contributing something that matters in terms of what you're doing with that photo, whether or not someone down the road just sees it as yours or not. So
Yeah.
this is, I think, a far more serious case of misappropriation and mispresentation of someone else's work.
Mhm. Yeah, and the photographer who has made the original photo has done a lot of work in it. Maybe he has 1 week and then another one doing in 1 hour with AI. He makes it different. So
Yeah.
it's not to compare.
Well, I can remember back in the day when, and this is when Flickr first started, so it's way back in the day when, a lot of folks are really strong advocates around Creative Commons, and let's populate the commons with more and more images that, make it possible for people to use them because, there are lots of benefits to that. And, the notion of the commons and public access to IP, if you will, or stuff that is able to be used is enriching and generative of the new.
Yeah, but
But a lot of folks now recognize that what they previously released as Creative Commons has been sucked into various tools to train the models. And so a lot of their content, like, I don't put my stuff out as Creative Commons anymore, at least not photographs. I used to. I don't anymore. But not that it matters because stuff will get scooped up anyways. But yeah, it's the ground of the commons has shifted quite substantially through this technology.
when
I
I
am
was
pleased. Oh, I'm sorry, there's one more thing.
no, go ahead.
I am pleased that the courts are not granting IP to any AI work because
Oh,
that's frustrating to a lot of the companies who would like to be able to start to generate IP off of this. And so far, that's not been possible, but I can imagine that being eroded.
This week I heard in the television as well that the legal the jurists have problems now with proving things because of AI them in, as well, because
Yeah,
they don't know what's real and what's real and what's not real any longer.
yeah.
So this is a problem as well.
We
And
live
I
in the
was
time of
thinking
deep
when I
fakes.
saw these photos of real and AI, when I was in the school of photography, they told me copy a lot of photographers, then you learn a lot and you get more creativity. That's true as well, huh? So copy a lot of their ways of making photographs.
Mhm.
Actually, they are copying a lot as well, too much.
I'd say that it's like a musical instrument. I think it's like you copy stuff to begin with. Of course, you would play a musical score like a Mozart symphony or something like that. That doesn't mean you're copying Mozart. It's a performance. So, but still, I think the idea of using your camera like a musical instrument where you have to practice it. And one of the things you first do, like if you play guitar, when in the 1960s, everybody would play guitars and be playing the song Wipeout. It was so easy to do on guitar, you know. So then the next thing you know, some of these people were starting to branch out into more complicated pieces. And they end up being very good guitar players by copying other people's work. So nothing wrong with copying stuff
No,
as
but
long as you eventually get somewhere with it.
maybe this could happen with them as well. Huh? Maybe the copiers are more famous than the originals later.
Yeah. So does anybody have any other photos they want to share?
Let me
I've
see
shared
something
quite a few,
stuff.
so some of yours.
You have some, Jeff?
Oh, I was gonna say I've shared quite a few, so I think it's time for some more of
It's
your.
my turn.
It's your turn. Yes.
Let me see if I have something. What have you done? Oh, maybe this one.
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh,
So that's just well, here, blown highlights, and look how aesthetically interesting that is, or almost blown highlights. That is cool.
I think you probably could have left some of that stripe all the way through as pure white. But yeah, that's an interesting composition.
One a good thing to think about in terms of our earlier conversation about highlights.
Because there should be very little texture in those white stripes.
Yeah.
How did you compensate for the exposure in post-production?
I
What did you
might
do here?
maybe 2 or 3 stops lower down the whites
Mhm.
and the blacks as well.
Now, where were you? You were in a balcony or at
Yeah, I
top?
was on a parking garage. And look down in the street. So, and I've shutter was in 115. I'm 15th.
Well, and it's really fortuitous, like the shapes, like with the umbrella and the walker and the textures.
Shock of
It's,
white hair too. Yeah.
it's very visually interesting. I have questions.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like there's some whimsy going on there, but maybe not. I mean, some mocking even. But I'm
Yeah.
sure that's not what was happening. But your tones are all pretty good. I think you should crop out the bright area with the post. So it bumps right up to that dark edge.
The
So
right,
the eye is 100% drawn to the two people.
could be. This is in
Yeah, I saw that posted this week. I like the colors that you're playing with and the two of them.
I don't have a lot of things to show. I think. This was the photo.
Okay.
So I could add a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, the sides can be a little bit distracting. I mean, this is also interesting. I do like this one too, but I can see why you pulled it in on the sides.
I think you could have left the whites as is. I think the whites work well, especially with that white hair. And yeah, if you cropped in some more like you did, it'd be kind of cool if both those people were a little bit farther over to our left to be more nicely framed between the sides.
Yeah, frankly, I prefer the exposure here to the adjusted.
Yeah.
This is more or less the original, I think.
Well, and it's interesting because of what it like on the man's runner when it hits on the stripe there, like it's got a really nice grittiness to it, whereas in the processed one you've pushed things down a little bit
Yeah.
on the whites in particular.
Here I've asked AI to do it.
Uh
You say you did ask AI to do it here?
Yeah.
I think the original is better.
You took one or two. You found a good spot.
This one I like as well.
Yeah, I do too.
It was rainy.
What was your shutter speed?
This is
Or
the original photo. Let me see.
okay, because you were going for blur in all of them.
Yeah, 1/10.
Okay, that makes sense.
F11, ISO 64 with a 50 millimeter.
Right.
Hmm.
I think there are arguments that can be made about where the people or when people are facing the camera as opposed to walking away from the camera. They supply a different character.
Hmm.
And again, I think that the idea of the direct object, if somebody's looking at a direct object, or if their back is to the camera, and you can tell where they're looking or where they're headed or something like that, that helps.
Mhm. I think one day later, I started here.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
You're really getting into the black and white.
Yeah. I try to make movement and rain together. Let me see. Well, maybe hear something about Alicante. Here I try to make ICM. Not too blurry. It's difficult to find the good shutter speed and to move. Eh?
I think with ICM too, it also makes a difference with what your background's like, with what your subject is. I think the subject generally ought to be brighter than the background, maybe. I don't know. Although I think that works kind of well.
Yeah, you're just searching. You see a lot of things are not working. Oh. Well, I give the ball to someone else.
Okay, I'll get a couple of shots here before we get out of here. Let me get my. Did I put it on that? No, wait a minute. Let me get. Hey, can you still see that flower?
Yes.
Where else am I going with this? Then unfurling.
Oh, wow.
Here's a nursery web spider. It's still sitting out there. I've gotten every morning there. It's still there.
So
It's
we
not
only
dead.
see the small thumbnail, or we don't see the large view, or I don't see the large view.
Oh, you're not seeing that?
No, I'm just seeing the palette, the layer, but I don't see the image.
Okay, let me go back.
You see the image of Jeff behind it.
I think it just
Top
shows the wrong
share.
window.
Let me go back.
There we go. Oh my gosh. That's really something.
And that's not a dead spider. If you get, I've seen it walking around there. But apparently the person is a naturalist in my photography club says, just keep paying attention because there will be all these baby spiders all over the place here.
Yeah. The lattice of suspended dew is gorgeous.
Yeah, and petal was curled up by that web.
Hmm.
Wow.
It's held
So,
under tension. That's just beautiful.
Uh, see what else. It's a dahlia, not that one. Can you see the fly here?
Yeah. What is it on?
It's on a dahlia leaf.
Oh, okay.
So it's got, if I get to 100% detail here,
wow.
and that for whatever reason this year, the flies, they just, in the mornings, will just stay put.
Hmm. Look at the detail on its little the little nose antenna there, whatever that thing is called.
Yeah. And this I use a very fine stack too. If you don't, you'll end up with artifacts between the little like the little hairs on the.
Hmm.
But anyway, I'm sharing photos. We're already after 3. I'm planning on doing this again tomorrow or next week for next Sunday. And so, Jan, you're going to have pictures next week
He's
on
got
the
two
weekly.
posts
Maybe we'll see.
All right.
already.
You never know. Maybe everything is bad.
Okay. As usual, this is fun. Yeah. I think I'm learning a lot. I believe. Yeah. And even if you try to when you try to explain it to other people like this, that goes a long way.
Hmm.
What we could do is maybe think about 5 or 6 photos each other and then talk about it.
Hmm.
Give critics.
Okay.
Huh?
Yep.
All
That's a
right.
good idea.
Let's do that. Everybody get 5 photos ready
Yeah.
and see what we can come up with.
And then give good critics, eh?
Yeah. Okay,
And
guys,
don't get angry.
I'm going to end it. I'll have the video posted here later today or early tomorrow.
All right.
We'll see
Enjoy.
ya.
Bye-bye.
See you later.
Bye.